In this video, we'll be factoring trinomials by the grouping method. This is sometimes called the AC method. Now this takes a little bit longer, this method, longer than trial and error, but if you're stumped and you can't figure out how to factor a trinomial, instead of spending a whole lot of time on it, try giving this method a chance and you'll be able to get it pretty quickly. So what I'll do is I'll give you the steps over here on the left side with the standard trinomial ax squared plus bx plus c, and then on the right side here I'll actually work with a trinomial that has numbers in instead of letters. So our first step is to just find the value of AC. Now A is your lead coefficient, C is your constant. So in our case, AC is equal to 8 times negative 3. 8 times negative 3. AC is negative 24. Step 2 is to find two factors of AC that add to be the middle coefficient B. Middle coefficient is B. So I'm going to look through the factors of negative 24. I have 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, and that's it. But I need negative, so negative on all of these. Or I could have negatives on the second factor. So 1 times negative 24, 2 times negative 12, 3 times negative 8, and 4 times negative 6. Now I want to add the two numbers together to get a negative 10. So the sum here is 23. Nope. The sum here is positive 10, so I'm going to jump on down to this one, and when I add these two together, I get 2 and negative 12 is negative 10. So these are the two factors that I'm going to use. Then I want to rewrite the middle term, bx, as the sum of these two factors. So you're going to take this trinomial and rewrite it, but instead of the negative 10x, you're going to write with the sum of these two in there. So I have 8x squared, and then I have, instead of negative 10x, I'm going to write plus 2x minus 12x, and then finish up my trinomial, negative 3. Notice that I've not changed my trinomial. When I add 2x and negative 12x, I get negative 10x. So all I've done is put this in a different form. Then I want to group these four terms into two pairs. And I usually take the first two and the last two. And then factor each pair. So out of the first pair, I see a common factor of 2x. So I'm going to pull a 2x out of the first pair. And when I divide this term by 2x, I have 4x left, plus. And then when I divide this term by 2x, 2x over 2x is 1. So you have to write the 1 there. Now I also need to factor this pair. Notice that I have a minus here. So I'm going to factor out a negative. Always, whenever you have a minus between your two pairs, factor a negative also. And then 3, looks like is also a common factor in both. When I divide negative 12x by negative 3, I get a positive 4x. And when I divide a negative 3 by negative 3, I get plus 1. Now, if you've done this factoring correctly, you should get a common binomial factor in both terms. So you then need to factor out that common binomial factor. So I'm going to write it in front and then open my parentheses to write what's left. When I divide this first term by 4x plus 1, I have 2x left. And when I divide this last term by 4x plus 1, I have negative 3. So this is my factored form of this trinomial. Let's do another example. First find AC, and AC is 6 times negative 8, which is negative 48. Then you want to find two factors of negative 48 that add to give me this 13 right here. So I'm going to just list my factors. I always go in order. 1 times 48, 2 times 24, 3 times 16, 4 times 12, and then 6 times 8. Now I need a negative, so I'll go ahead and make these negative. And then I also have a positive 1 and a negative 48, positive 2 and negative 24, positive 3 and negative 16, positive 4 and negative 12, and then positive 6 and negative 8. Alright, so then I want the sum of the two factors to be 13. Well, this sum is 47, 22, here we have 13. So this is the one that I want. Notice none of the other ones work. None of the other pairs of factors work. So now what I'm going to do is rewrite this trinomial. So I have 6x squared, but instead of writing 13x, I'm going to use these two. So I have negative 3x and positive 16x. See, when you add these two together, you'll get your 13x. So I'm not changing it. And then continue with the minus 8 constant term. Right? Now we're going to group into pairs, and I always take the first pair and the last pair. And then factor. On this first pair, I have a 3x. When I divide this term by 3x, I have 2x left. Minus, and then 3x divided by 3x is 1. Now in this one I have a plus in between there, so I'm just going to factor out positive 8. And when I do, 16x divided by 8 is 2x. And then negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 1. So I have my common binomial factor. Yay! That means you did it right. I'll factor that binomial out. Remember to put parentheses around it, because if you don't, you're just taking the 1 through. You must have parentheses around it. And then we'll write what's left. In this first term, I have a 3x, and then in the last term, I have an 8. And this is my factored form.